we were leaving the hospital with our first child, my husband looks at me and he goes, so when do we go to the parenting school? Like the class? And I go, oh, sweetheart, there's no class. Like that little sweet baby is coming with us. Welcome to Inspired. I'm Alexa Von Topol. It's 7 p.m. Your toddler is crying over the wrong cup. Your older child is refusing to do homework. You're in the kitchen thinking that you're failing at the job that matters most. We've all been there. You're not alone, and you're definitely not broken. Dr. Becky Kennedy has sparked a parenting revolution. Time calls her the millennial parenting whisperer. She built Good Inside into a global movement with millions of followers, a #1 New York Times bestselling book, and now the most powerful consumer parenting tool on the planet, an AI app that helps parents in real time. Just 5 years ago, she was part-time in private practice, raising 3 kids. One Instagram post went viral, and it changed everything. Her philosophy was simple: connection over correction. Good kids having hard times, not bad kids doing bad things. Today, we explore how she built a business transforming millions of families, the future of parenting, technology, and what it really means to be a sturdy parent. As a board member of Good Inside and a dear friend of Dr. Becky's, I've had a front row seat to this incredible journey. So how did she do it all? Let's find out. If you're running a startup, we know things like managing equity and communicating with investors are always top of mind. Carta has built a connected suite of tools that over 40,000 companies use to do just that. Their platform of software and services helps you lay the groundwork so you can focus on building. To learn more or get started, visit carta.com. And with that, let's welcome Becky. First of all, Becky, I'm so excited to have you on, just as somebody who is your pal and your friend and a fellow teammate on Good Inside. I just want to start from the beginning, which is your own origin story. And, I know that you grew up in Westchester. But give us just as somebody who is such a brilliant parenting expert, give us a few of the tidbits of your own childhood that really stand out as formative.
Yeah, I've reflected a bunch about this since kind of my own journey, right? Okay, well, how was I parented? What do I want to do similar? What do I want to do differently? How did this all come together? I think the thing that strikes me the most about my early years in terms of my family environment and parenting was I feel like I had one parent who was just an A+ on all of the emotional connectedness and validation. Honestly, growing up, my friends would come to our house and we'd sit around the table, and even after school, when in theory we were at the age to not want to be around parents ever, some portion of the time it'd be like, oh, let's go to your house, and we'd sit and talk to my mom. We really would, about whatever was going on. And she just always led with curiosity. I often think curiosity and judgment are opposites. And a lot of us, me too, sometimes we lead with judgment. You hear, about some kid in the class who's a bad kid. Oh, that's a bad kid, right? Versus, oh, I wonder what's going on for that kid. I wonder what that kid struggles with. My mom just very much leads with curiosity. She's oriented towards emotions. She wasn't a permissive parent, but connection, validation, emotional language was just her way of being. And then I would say my dad is just this very logical, practical, action-oriented person. My dad, I don't think he has a lot of thoughts that he doesn't convert into action, so much so that, me and my siblings sometimes say, don't generate a new idea around him it's going to be ordered on Amazon the next second. And we're we don't even want that. I don't even know what I said out loud, And I feel when I think about those two influences in terms of someone who's deeply curious about people, sees the good inside people, always wants to know, what's the full story under the behavior? It doesn't make the behavior okay, but you are limiting yourself from learning information if you just judge a behavior by the behavior, not the story underneath. So that was one influence. And then the other side, practical, actionable, kind of an obsession with personal responsibility. Okay, well, that happened. Yep. What are we doing about it next? And what can you do? And how can you move this forward? And what are your goals? And you can do that. And you're capable, and not as much an emotion. And if I think about bringing that together in one person or in one approach, I really feel Good Inside marries those two things. And I think that's what's so unique about the approach that, of course, then can get represented in a book or, in a digital product or so many other things that we're doing. But it's I think really the first time that there's really this approach where you can do both at once. I actually think it's best when we do both at once. Alexa, I know you have a lot to say about leadership, but we see the best leaders and CEOs, and I think we see the best even professional sports coaches realize you really can't lead a team well with just logic and practicality or just with emotional connectedness, but one is not superior to the other. What's superior is actually when you're able to bring them together.
Becky, one of the things I really enjoy about our friendship is that you and I, we talk a lot about parenting and our kids, and I have learned an immense amount from you. We are also the exact same age, which means that we grew up in a similar genre of parenting. And I think different genres have different types of parents. What do you think about the genre of like the way all of us were raised, and what have we learned about it?
I think there's two main ways I hear about people in my generation often being raised, and they're distinct, but I think I want to name both because I think neither, is ideal and both have limitations, just like any style of parenting. I don't claim good inside as some perfect way, but one way was the version of like, your life is a lot better than mine was, okay? Like, move on, stop crying or I'll give you something to cry about, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. We don't do that in this family, like, keep going. And I think in that messaging, not once, twice, but if that was the general pattern, what I've seen from a lot of people in our general age range is a real struggle when things are emotionally messy without an obvious next step or solution. Like, okay, I'm crying that I got a bad grade and I guess I can keep going on, but like, I got fired from a job, or I don't want to live where I live anymore, but I also have roots here, or I'm with someone, I don't really think I want to marry them, but I don't want to get out of things. Like, there's no amount of logic that's going to help you move through those decisions. What would help is your ability to manage and regulate your emotional experience so you can be grounded enough to figure out what to do next, knowing you're still going to have a tough emotion because there's no perfect answers. And I think the kind of no emotions, just keep going, it just leaves adults remarkably unprepared for the times that happen more in adulthood than childhood, because childhood is just a little simpler. And like, there's nothing obvious, there's nothing clean. It's all very, very messy. And I'm sure you and I know a lot of people, Alexa, at our age still, who their ability to just tolerate distress as opposed to being convinced that there's some easy answer is still probably not that different than when they were a child, right? Because they weren't taught those skills. Now, I think the other end, which I see from people maybe a little younger than us, I'm in denial about our age, is some version of what might be called helicopter parenting, or what is called snowplow parenting. Like, I had the best parents in the world. What do you mean? Like, I know I'm in therapy. People say, I know I'm in therapy. I'm supposed to complain about my mom or my dad, which I'm always like, that's definitely not what good therapy is about, but okay. But they were the best. They were the best. Like, and I'm like, okay, well, tell me more. And then the stories would come out. Well, you don't understand. Like, I remember I wasn't even in third grade with my best friend. And then they called the school. And like, they got my best friend to change classes and be in my class. And I didn't make the soccer team, and I wasn't even upset for a second. Like, my parents like figured out another soccer team 45 minutes away, and they figured out like, and what feels like extreme emotional attunement, to me, something's happened where and it was definitely starting before, but I think this has started more now, where we've confused emotional safety with emotional comfort. Emotional safety actually is your ability to be comfortable being yourself in the widest range of emotions, which ironically, emotional safety comes from learning to tolerate discomfort. Prioritizing emotional comfort in childhood leads to adults who are, yes, remarkably fragile, and where situations that are hard end up feeling like a 10 out of 10 just because they never had to learn to tolerate anything that was a 5 out of 10 because it was immediately fixed for them. And so I think about those two extremes in terms of, people in our generation, and how honestly, I think adults say, I don't want to fully embody or repeat either of those.
By the way, that rings extremely true for the same world orbit that I was raised in, are those two kind of polar opposites. Becky, because I feel like very few people get to hear just a little bit about how extremely well educated you are. I want to take a quick beat on your early career in your private practice, which basically was 2000 through 2020. But you completed your PhD. You also graduated from Duke Phi Beta Kappa, summa cum laude, studying psychology and human development, which I also studied psychology, and I feel like we were probably very much drawn to some parts of what that is about people and humanity. Just talk a little bit about why you ended up so interested in this path.
Yeah, so when I went to Duke, I started freshman year kind of doing econ and psych. It was way before as freshman year to declare a major, but I found myself very interested in both. And I just thought, economics and, numbers, and that excited me. And then on the other hand, very, very different from that was, just put simply, people were just endlessly fascinating to me. I think anybody who knew me when I was younger would say, Becky was she had endless questions about us, about our family, about my relationship with my brother and that great aunt who she was around when Becky came to Thanksgiving with my family, and what's that aunt's deal? And I wonder why she is the way she is. I just find people endlessly fascinating. Like, if you're a curious person, you like questions more than answers, and you like situations where one question's answer leads to 30 more questions. And obviously that tree becomes unanswerable, but you just love living in that tree. I love living in that tree. And there's just no other topic for me that I've ever been able to immerse myself in that allows me to be so curious about things than people, and systems. I find systems really interesting. So people and birth order and the way someone's mom is and kind of their particulars of their mom. Well, growing up with a mom like that, like, what's the interaction and what qualities does kind of a first kid claim, and what's left over for a second kid and what's left over for a third kid, and how when one person changes, a whole system changes. Like, now forget just being interested about a person. When you think about a person in a family system, in a work system, in a marriage system, there's so many systems. Again, there's just endless questions. You hear me getting excited about it. And so at Duke, I don't think I was really at Duke. I was like, wow, you can kind of make a living. There are professions out of being curious about people. Like, I think people think about therapists as people who solve your problem, but I think what people miss, and this is actually core to our philosophy, is you cannot solve a problem you don't understand. And I'm an impatient person too. I like going right to solutions, but when you try strategies and supposed solutions before you understand a problem, it's like a tennis coach trying to fix, a tennis player's game without understanding, like, is it their stance? Is it their swing? Is it that they have something broken on their racket? Is this person just really too young and too weak to even get the ball out of the net? Like, it would be a joke to try to start changing someone's game before you watch and figure out what's going on, right? And I love that process. And then from my dad's influence, I love taking deep understanding and making it like almost absurdly actionable. Like, okay, well, I figured that out. Like, what do I do? Like, what do I do literally today that maybe won't change everything? Human change doesn't happen that quickly, but does give me a feeling of, oh, this is different. This is on the right track. And all of a sudden I'm starting to see progress relatively quickly. And so I think that's why I decided to pursue psychology, honestly, not economics. Although if I'm honest, after Duke, I went to get my PhD from Columbia, my PhD in clinical psychology in adult and child. I was always interested in both. And there were a number of years into my practice that I thought it's kind of like that, in my mind, econ part of me. And the way I would always think about it, is a funny word, is I wanted more movement. I was like, in my practice, talking to one-on-one with someone, I love that, but I wanted more movement. I wanted to get out. I wanted to explore new ideas. I wanted something a little more expansive. And now it is kind of interesting to me at Good Inside. Like, I do feel like those different parts of me have been able to, know each other, or maybe even, meld together, which I think is why it feels so fulfilling.
I love that. One specific question I want to ask, just because as I've gotten older, I have 3 children, I'm married, the internal family system, and I know that the sort of underpinnings of Good Inside are about attachment theory and mindfulness and emotional regulation, probably on all levels. In internal family systems, what is an internal family system? Can you just decode that?
Yeah, so internal family systems is actually the name of kind of a theory or an approach to understanding people. So it's actually kind of, people know the acronym CBT, like cognitive behavioral therapy. It's a way of understanding people, or psychodynamic therapy, right? IFS, internal family systems, is an approach started by a guy named Dick Schwartz. And I guess the TLDR on it is the idea is actually that within each individual, so within me and Alexa, like within you, is a kind of internal family system. Meaning, when you grow up and you're figuring out like, what works in my family, what parts of me get love and attention, what things about me should I shut down because like not safe, not good, kind of either it was dangerous or my family gave me these looks, like that's not who we are. And how do I manage that? Well, according to Dick Schwartz, and this really resonates with me deeply, we actually almost create these multiple parts of ourselves. And people go extreme. They're like, oh, like we all have multiple personality disorder. No, that would be an extremely extreme version of IFS where those parts don't even have contact with each other in a way. They're distinct. That is not true for most people. But we learn like what parts of us should be kind of coming closer to the surface and leading our decisions. And we kind of develop other parts, almost called like these protector parts that kind of push down the things about us that we learned, kind of weren't so safe. And I think the reason IFS has really influenced my own approach to parenting is there's nothing like having a child to show you everything that was unhealed about your own childhood. You're like, it's true, my kid whined, that was annoying, but wow, like my reaction, something bigger was going on because that was like a pretty intense reaction. And people will say to me, oh, so some people like the sound of whining? No human being likes the sound of whining, but it doesn't lead to like a full-fledged 10 out of 10 scream and saying words we wish we could take back for everyone. It doesn't make you a monster. But in IFS language, there's probably something going on inside you that predated your child's whining that kind of gets acted out in that moment. And it's really a way to better understand ourselves.
That is very, very helpful and makes tons of sense to me. Before we get to Good Inside, where I am absolutely amazed by the mission and what you want to accomplish, I want to go back to February 28th of 2020. And I mean, Becky, when I met you, we were on a hike and I was like, Becky, I've been listening to your content, like really loving it. And I was just like a genuine interested follower. But what happened right as COVID broke out to your life? Quite literally.
I know, my whole life changed. It really did. If I only knew what was coming. So, I mean, I guess it started a little bit, before that, like all overnight stories do. And that I was in my private practice. I was seeing adults for therapy. I was seeing couples for couples work, some teens. And I started seeing a lot of parents of young kids who would call me saying, look, like, I'm not looking for therapy, but stuff's going on with my kids, sibling issues, tantrums, meltdowns, defiance, whatever it was, anxiety. And I don't really think my kid needs a therapist, but I definitely need some help because, I'm not liking what I'm seeing in my home. So I started doing this parenting work, and for a while I was doing what I was trained to do, right? I've always been one for like education and learning, so I got more training in parenting work. At the time, the predominant theory was all timeouts, punishments, sticker charts, reward, praise, kind of reward the good to get more of it, kind of, I hate this word now, but it was true. It was said, extinguish, the bad. And it was never really explained how you actually raise good, resilient humans through that, but no one really asked questions, including me, and we just kind of did as told. And so I'm in private practice doing this for years, and honestly, it was probably a couple years after I had my first, I was just like, I don't know. Like that was kind of how it started. I don't know about this. Like, I know this is what everyone's doing. This is what the top, institutions are training therapists in. And I know there's like a lot of scientific evidence saying this helps, but I think I just become I'm a total believer in science, but I did become just a little more skeptical. Like, well, what was that study and who was included and how long did they track those gains? And I can never forget one of my supervisors saying, Becky, if a little kid was hitting and I made them sleep out on the street for a week, I promise you they'd stop hitting. I'm not sure that evidence is evidence to brag about, and that is extreme, but it just made me realize like, okay, again, you can be curious about things, that are presented to you as a whole truth. And I think maybe the most important thing that happened, and this is probably years before that first post, was just like, this feels wrong. That's it. This just feels bad. Like it feels bad that my kid, I know, is kind of having a hard time. That is why they're hitting or saying, I hate you. And my response is isolating them in their room. Like, what are they doing there? Are they Googling like how I should more effectively manage my anger so I don't hit. Like, no, like they're probably doing what we did when we were sent to our room. We are engaging in revenge fantasies and feeling misunderstood, which has never helped anyone change for the better. Plus, I'm kind of reflecting to my kid that they're a bad kid. You only like punish and send away bad kids. So why would I expect my kid, where I'm telling them they're a bad kid, to have good behavior? And so I started to question it. It led to me experimenting with so many different things in my practice. I just think there was this one day that I said, I'm giving myself freedom. Like I know how I work with adults. I never punish my adult clients for bad behavior. We figure it out together. We practice new skills. Why wouldn't kids in some way need the same thing? We just have these old ideas. If you don't punish ideas, if you don't punish behavior, you're permitting behavior. But I'd be like, well, that's not true. Like I've had hard moments with my husband and he doesn't punish me. It doesn't mean I think he approves. Like, and if he punished me, promise you, wouldn't help. No, really, we would be in a different place. So I think there was probably a good year of experimenting with that in my private practice. And then I just got loads of referrals. Like I hear you're the person when all the stuff we learned from everyone else doesn't work, like to come to. And it was just a very creative time. Because like once I had core ideas that were different, like I think kids are good inside. I think they're born with all the feelings, but none of the skills. And we don't punish kids to learn how to swim. We teach them. And what if we thought about kind of emotion regulation the same way? And then honestly, the true story was I was redoing my website. I had this woman who was helping me with design. I had all these ideas. My sister said to me, you should really put them on Instagram. And I thought like, I don't like Instagram and I don't know how to use that thing. But I had this designer and I just said, if I wanted to do that, like how would I do that? And she goes, well, sign up for Canva. And I was like, I'm going to need you to show me how to do that. So, and she's like, you'll need some templates. I was like, I don't really know what that means. She's like, I'll put some up. And then she said, just start here are your templates, start doing it. My sister literally FaceTimed me to show me how to do an Instagram story. I didn't know that either.
Look how far you've come, Becky.
Look how far I've come. I now know about Canva and Instagram stories. Like these are the growth moments we're proud of.
So let's go into like March, April, May of COVID. And actually maybe even, that next year, when did you like internalize? Because I obviously met you and invested and got to join your journey. And very much at that point, you were building something. When did like that light bulb go off for you? Was it really quickly? Was it slowly over time that you were like, this is an incredible movement that could change the entire world?
Yeah. I mean, I can only, and you know me, like I can only answer honestly. So I don't even remember some like light bulb moment. That's not what it was. These ideas, the only reason I started Instagram was because I felt so compelled about them. Like truly, I'm always an early riser, but there was this month or two once the flow started, I was up at 4 a.m. Like I couldn't sleep because I'd wake up with some new idea that I had to write down or I had to capture on video. I really mean this for no one's benefit than my own. It was like painful. Like I know this sounds weird, but it's like someone saying like, when did you decide to vomit? Like, no, that's like not how vomiting works. Like it just happens. And I really do feel like the first year of the floodgates opened when I kind of not only realized this whole punishment control movement wasn't the thing, but that there could be another way. And what happened in that first year of Instagram is it just was organic. Okay, I have more to say. Okay, now I know how to do a story. Okay, well, I have an hour's worth of things to say on one topic. And I remember saying this to someone who's like, well, do like a live webinar. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I mean, that's a lot of time. Like I'm prepping for it all, so I'll charge for that. And I was like, well, some people can't come live. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to record it. And then I think you know this, but for the first year, I would sell the recording as a private YouTube link sent through Eventbrite. Like it made no sense. Eventbrite was like for live events. So you'd buy a ticket to the recording of something and you get an email with a private YouTube link, which you could have sent to anyone, like literally, but I don't know what to do. And I was just already on to the next thing. I wasn't worried. And what happened in those live workshops was something I didn't expect. The only way I can describe it is the exact same as our live events now. The chat is popping. Like parents who haven't come to a live workshop yet, they're like, that's a heavy topic, defiance. I'm like, no, you're going to laugh. You're going to cry from laughing and relief. You're going to connect about some random topic. And they're like, where? I'm like, in the chat. Like it brought people together and the connection. And still to this day, I think I have a lot of valuable things that you don't hear anywhere else, to say. But if I had to pick between my ideas in a live workshop and what happens in the chat in terms of what is most valuable to people, I would choose the chat any day, because the true community there is unlike anything, unlike anywhere else.
Literally, Becky, my experience was a Deeply Feeling Kids seminar. And what blew me away was the literally thousands of attendees. At some point, I think you hacked Zoom, which I was like,
Yep.
wow, here we are with your Zoom hacking. You were getting better at the internet pretty quickly.
Yep.
And I sat there, and it was watching all of the people in the chat, and actually I had this personal feeling of relief.
Yes.
Because it was like, I have a DFK, one of my most favorite little humans on the planet, and I was just watching, and I was like, oh my God, we're all having the same experience.
Yeah.
And I think that was a moment where I realized you are never alone as a parent. Quite literally, there's always a human on you, but you can feel extremely lonely in the experience.
So lonely. And it kind of goes back to logic versus emotion. The thing about feeling alone is you're in your house, something happens with your kid. Like, deeply feeling kids are a good example. You're like, did I just hear my kid hiss at me? Like, literally hiss. And then what happens in our mind is you're like, oh my goodness, like something's actually wrong with my kid. People say nothing's wrong with their kid. Something's actually wrong with my kid. I have the one kid where something's off, and that probably means I'm a bad parent too. And maybe my kid's a sociopath, and here's what they're going to be like in 20 years. And that aloneness creates the spiral. You don't spiral when you're a community with people. Community actually stops the spiral. It's aloneness, but you feel so shameful and worried that you don't seek out community. But what happens in community is no one tells you. Someone can tell you you're not alone. It doesn't matter. That talks to the brain. Your body has to feel it, and logic can never make us feel something, because logic isn't an experience. It's just, kind of something that happens up top. And so you can't generate that by hearing something. You have to actually be in a place where you feel and you see evidence. I am not alone. And then honestly, what would happen for the next workshop is I would start getting emails after that one. Oh, I wish you did one on this, or I don't want that one. Okay, I'll take the thing that's most requested and I'll do the next one. I'll do the next one. And then what started happening is people saying, I want all of them. Like, I just want to be part of this. Honestly, parenting is a journey. Like, maybe I'm not dealing with sleep issues now, but obviously in a month I will be. And I don't have a kid who's hitting. I have a kid who's anxious, but my other kid looks pretty different from this kid. That's probably going to be the hitting kid. We all need all the things, not because we have all the problems or because something's wrong with us, but because we've been massively under-equipped for the most complicated job in the world. And people wanted all of kind of these ideas. They wanted it one place, and they wanted more access to each other than just in that hour. So then I connected with, Erica Belsky, my incredible co-founder. We went to Columbia together. We got our PhDs. We're both psychologists. And if you ask her, she'd say, almost a decade before, she told her mom randomly, one day I'm going to start something with Becky. And, Erica, maybe has more foresight than I did. So I guess it was destined. And we just said, we're going to do this. And it's nuts, we're two psychologists. We've never worked at any business. But I think Erica and I, beyond being remarkably balanced, I think big picture. I don't even ever think about risk. She's very detail oriented, and she's much more cautious than I am. It's like a perfect marriage in that way. We're just we're going to do this. We're going to do this. And maybe we've never worked at a, digital product place, but we really know people. We really know people. And, I think we kind of had faith that over time we could figure out step by step, and we could hire people with certain skills. But as hiring people who understand people is, it's hard. So, and we felt like we had that. And so we were just off to the races. And those early months were so nutty and probably, like everyone says, so much fun. There was no risk. It was like, okay, 2021, our plan was, let's bring this all together. Kind of not only the kind of content and learning people need, but also real community, more than an hour on a Zoom. And by that time, I'd already manualized my Good Inside approach. And one of our early employees was someone who also helped teach it to train therapists and coaches in Good Inside so they could work in the community. Some of them now just operate in private practice. But our kind of idea was people want kind of this very personalized, specific content, at their fingertips. They want community and they want access to experts. Let's bring it in one place. But we knew that would be a project to get it a little bit right. It was 2021. And we're like, well, what else could we do? Well, we could, kind of have a branding exercise, figure out what we're going to call our company. We could start a podcast. We could start a newsletter. And it's actually crazy. We started January 2021. The podcast was live and our newsletter was live in April, and Erica's amazing. She found a sponsor. Frida sponsored our first podcast. Shout out to Frida for having so much faith in us before we had obviously any numbers.
Go Frida.
And then it kept being this balance of what we always felt like we always needed and didn't have as parents. And our community is so active and so close to us and so vocal about what they want, what they like, and what they don't like. And I really feel like everything we've done is community first, and that they bring us the ideas and then we hear it through our lens and, just try to make their experience of this whole parenting journey better and easier.
I want to tell you one funny anecdote, which is when I met you, and I think I'd had at least 2, maybe 3 kids. But when we were leaving the hospital with our first child, my husband looks at me and he goes, "So when do we go to the parenting school, like the class?" And I go, "Oh, sweetheart, there's no class. Like that little sweet baby is coming with us, and we're going home." And he was like, "There's no class at the hospital?" And I was like, "There's no class at the hospital." And one of the things that just kind of is mind-blowing, and you've said it a lot, but there are tools for everything. I mean, I love to run, I can use Strava. You want to hike, there's hiking apps. You want to get control of learning a new language, there's Duolingo. Parenting is the most universal thing that every single human being on this planet of 8.2 billion people that have children, it's universal. You care so much about the next generation. You would do quite literally anything to help them and give an advantage. And Becky, there's nothing. How is that possible? That the white space you've entered is that big?
Look, I mean, it's the thing that drives us every day, often maybe equally out of anger and inspiration. I don't know. I mean, I remember that same moment. Mine was a little different, but I was leaving the hospital and I looked around, kind of thinking someone was going to stop me and give me something. And, I went to the nurses in the nurses station. I was like, what do I need to leave the hospital, And I still remember her very well-intentioned and logical response. She goes, "Oh, a car seat," And I was like, okay, yeah, I have the car seat, and it's true. I love car seats. Everyone should have a car seat. This is no shade to car seats, but we all know car seats, they don't raise your child and make them into the adult you want them to be. And I just remember that moment. I didn't do anything with it until it kind of kept coming back with good inside, but it's true. I mean, I think first of all, parenting, not as much today, still today, but not as much as in the past, without a doubt, is a woman's job, right? I mean, decades and decades ago, it was the mom's job to raise a kid, and kind of that was the default. And I don't think we have a terribly good history of empowering women, across, generations. So I think that's number one. I think there's this idea out there of maternal instinct that has had a much more pervasive impact on our attitudes toward parenting than we think. I think this is where I just see evidence of that over and over, where I talk to moms especially a lot, and they're like, "I followed you on Instagram for a while," and they'll be at a live event, and then they will, and I love these moments. I feel so privileged. They'll open up. They're crying. They're like, "Oh my goodness, I think I have a DFK like you talk about, but this is awful and this," and I go to bed every night, crying and feeling awful about myself and worrying I'm messing up my kid. I'm like, okay, I hear it, hold the space, and I'm like, okay, tell me what you've tried, and not only have they not called a therapist, even our app, our product, which we purposely know is less than a copay a month for a reason. They're like, "No." And I'm like, this is no judgment zone. Just talk to me. It sounds like you trust me already. We have a relationship, it's out there. And I seriously hear the same thing every time. This sounds crazy, but I feel like joining is admitting failure. I feel like joining is admitting failure. Someone said, "Look, if you want to be explicit, I feel like paying for parenting advice is admitting I'm a bad mom." And that's a lot to admit that. This is fascinating. The best athletes in the world, I don't know one person along their journey is paying for coaching is admitting I'm not a good athlete. No, like, and I also think you as an investor, like I want to see the day you go into CEO's office when you're thinking about investing, they go, look, like, no offense, this whole executive coaching thing people do, like, that's not for me. Like, I have founder instinct and like, I'm not going to pay. It's kind of like admitting I'm not a good founder. You'd be like, I'm so glad you're not wasting my time. I have out of the freaking room. Goodbye. Meeting over, right?
No, yeah, meeting over.
Meeting over. Like, sorry, I didn't go to med school. I just do surgery by instinct. Again, like my meeting, consultation over. I'm going to, So I think that is really fascinating when you think about those areas. I actually think now, and I don't know if you see this with founders, my founder friends, everyone brags about their executive coach. It's like, oh, you only have 2 times a month. I have 4 times a month. And you're like, damn, man, 4 times a month. I got to get on that. So, which didn't, I don't think that was true 20 to 30 years ago. There's probably more shame, right? And so I guess I think that maybe parenting is like the last domain to shift, maybe again, because it's been in the female zone, although I'm actually so inspired by so many dads who want to be so involved. And interestingly, when I talk to them, they have no shame. They're like, oh, I'm not a member of your app. I'm joining now. Like, this is like a no-brainer, because I think there's actually, I've never heard someone talk about a paternal instinct. It's just not even a phrase, right?
It's not even a phrase. It's not even a phrase. That's a great point.
And I think like the world we want to build, because everyone's like, oh, I love your scripts. But like anyone who's a member, they don't think about Good Inside for scripts and tips. We all need that in moments, but they think about it as like, first of all, I just feel like a more empowered, confident version of myself at work, in my marriage, in my friendships outside of parenting. Like, this is just a daily dose or a weekly dose, whatever I need in the moment, of approaching parenting in the same way I approach every other area of my life that I care less about.
Yes, and actually, properly a compliment to you, Becky. I remember watching the Building Confidence in Kids seminar. I watched it literally twice in a row, because I think building confidence in our kids is one of the most important things we can do, as somebody who, for whatever reason, grew up feeling confident. And it was so counterintuitive. It was like, if your son or daughter doesn't want to go to soccer, we're like, you love soccer, you love soccer. And you're basically negating their feelings. And watching that seminar, it was like, no, actually validating how they feel and empowering them to trust how they feel and their instincts is actually what makes them move through this world really trusting themselves.
I want to add for all the listeners, because I think this is a nuance, and this is where Good Inside is different from permissive. My kid says, like, I don't like soccer, I don't want to go anymore, and they're on team. I'm saying, oh, I get it. Like, tell me more, hear that. And we're about to get in the car, like, we finish up our commitments, like, you can still hold a boundary while you validate. That's just, I have to get that in there and, not be, it's not like, oh, you don't like soccer, you don't want to go to Aunt Sally's house, I'm going to cancel my plans.
But to your point, like, my maternal instinct, that wasn't intuitive. And and I had a moment where I was like, as somebody who was the CEO, I'm like, I've learned so many skill sets of how to be better at managing different things. Why on earth wouldn't I go learn those? And Becky, let's talk a little bit about Good Inside now. I want to talk about the product and your vision. And because you won't brag, I will brag for you. But you are at the point that you're in 109 plus countries. You have had literally thousands of people in countries self-organize, doctors even, to say, come, your product is what we give our patients. 109 countries, and we are only in English right now. Okay, so that's just like something to shout out. And on a really personal level, as a product user and a paying subscriber, even though I'm an investor, paying subscriber, my favorite thing that the app does for me is I get a text every morning. You can set the time for 7:45, because that is often when I'm hustling little humans out the door. That is for sure when Rosie Ryan does not want to put her shoes on and wants different pairs of shoes, typically a pair of sparkle high heels, which are really not good for camp. And I'm trying to just take a deep breath, and I literally, because my phone's always in my hand, I see it pop up, and it's like I can be a good parent for 15 minutes. And it's like exactly the dose that I need to be like, I can do 15 more minutes without getting frustrated, because these little humans need to get out the door. Where are you going with the company? What do you want to do? And then I do want to talk about the impact of what I think is possible.
Yeah. I mean, look, every area of our life has been digitized, right? Like every area of our life has been made more convenient. right? Like every single thing. There's something on our phone that maybe in some areas where like it's, there are concerns, but there are a lot of areas where like that just makes my life easier. I don't have to guess. And I think that's how this started for parents. Parenting thus far has been untouched by technology. Like we want to build an emotional digital infrastructure that parents have, always deserved and certainly need in 2025 when life moves at the pace it moves at. So when I think about a parent going through a chronic issue, my kid's been in a hitting, sleep, whatever stage for a while, or sometimes it's momentary, just like, I just got an email from the principal that my kid hit and they need to be picked up early. And you're like, I just hear myself yelling at my kid when they get in the car, even though I don't want to. But going back to what you said, the only thing that comes naturally in parenting is how you were parented. Like what's instinct? Instinct for anything is just what you've learned until that point. So that instinct often isn't something we even want to listen to. We know that, but there's no other way. And I feel like this doesn't have to be such a mystery. It doesn't have to be such guesswork. It doesn't have to be a 60-second Instagram reel because it just doesn't suffice for the nuanced situations. And, we want to show up for parents when they're struggling. We want to solve problems. We want to make sure you have a win every single day to build momentum. We want to help you get ahead of what we know is around the corner. And no parents do because we're drinking from a fire hose. So it's often like, oh, wait, there's parent-teacher conferences. Oh, wait, why is my kid clingy? Like, yes, parent-teacher conferences will send you what you need 3 days in advance so you feel like they went well. And you know why your kid's clingy? They're actually always clingy when you go back after holiday break because they've been home for 2 weeks. But if you don't know what to expect, you're going to lose a month of your life yelling at your kid and them resisting more. We can avoid the whole thing. And I think in 2025 and beyond, like it is true. We have so much coming at us that if life used to be a little quieter, kind of get ahead of things, we forget. Like we just all forget to do the things we want to do. Like you want to put your phone down for 5 minutes. You want to have a good question to ask your kid. You want to say a magical line right in the morning that just like, breaks that tension. And even if you want to, or even if some part of your brain knows what to do, it just moves down the list because you have 500 emails, because you have something pressing, you're realizing I didn't pay my taxes for my home, whatever it is. And then you go to bed feeling awful about yourself, and our kids' mental health, does kind of, pay the price. And it's never too late. I think we just believe that when there's something digitized in your pocket without judgment, but just with resources and empowerment and personalized to you, we not only can change the mental health of the next generation, we can raise resilient, anti-fragile kids. That's a huge goal of mine. And I think you know this, and it doesn't have to be such a secret, I think the reason Good Inside resonates so much is it actually helps a parent even more than their parenting. Like we get to the core of your triggers, of the stuff that you still need. Because people are like, wait, I have to teach my kids emotion skills. I don't really got a lot of those emotion skills, right? And I think we say, amazing, you're in the right place. We're going to teach you and you're going to teach your kids and we can do it all at once. And so that's what drives us. That's what drives our product team. And that's what drives kind of every decision, we make from here.
Becky, I want to double click on something you just said because it was what drew me to you and to the product as like a genuine fan before we even really met. I realized that so much of being a sturdy parent is, to your point, sturding yourself in the moment where the chaos is happening. And I think often we think about parenting as focusing on the children. And I think for me, that was the incredible switch where it was like, yes, it's about the children, but they are becoming PhDs in us. And so the more that we can be sturdy, and I love your pilot example, which is like if the pilot is very sturdy during a really scary turbulence, like we all feel really calm. And that's what everyone looks to and listens for. And that for me was the methodology switch that I thought just, again, and I my opinion doesn't matter. Millions and millions and millions of people and followers and #1 podcasts and best-selling books of every shape and size that you've accomplished. But it is allowing us permission to say, we want to be sturdier so that we can have the best family that we humanly can have.
Again, I think about a CEO of a company saying things don't feel good at the associate level, and I think anyone knows, like, you're not going to change that at the associate level. Like, you're going to change that probably at leadership level, at cultural level, and then you're going to see the impact further down. And, you know, I just think about this couple I've seen for a long time, and, you know, there was a session where it was the dad speaking about, you know, their youngest is kind of, you know, it all comes at once. There's hitting, there's not sleeping, you know, there's protesting, you know, every transition. Get it? Like the things we've all been through. And we talked about it, and then we kind of talked about the typical way they respond and what's going on and what it brings up in the dad. And the dad's like, Becky, just one time when I'm working with you, can you just tell me this is all your kid's fault and here's what your kid's going to do to change it, right? Like, can you say that one time? And again, I think we're obsessed with fault. People are like, well, if it's not my kid's fault, it's my fault. No, it's nobody's fault. Fault is not usually a useful concept. We can just look at what the truth is and figure out an effective path for change. And what I said to this dad is, look, no shade to your 4-year-old. I just believe in you more than I believe in your 4-year-old. Like, I'm not a betting woman, but if I was, I'd bet on your ability to change the situation more than I'd put that money on like 4-year-old Bobby over there, you know? And I think if we shift that mindset of like, oh, this is not my fault. Like, I am the adult. And actually, it's my opportunity. Because I think with that dad especially, you know, something really interesting happened over the week where he's like, is it so weird that the stuff that I'm working on with my 4-year-old is starting to help me with all of my management discussions at work? Like, I'm so much more able now to hear complaints from my leadership team and not either get mad or change my behavior, just kind of hear it. Even like, I never thought I'd say this word, validate it, and often not change a thing, but it seems to really diffuse the situation. Like, is that weird that even sometimes the same language works? And I'm like, it's not weird at all. It's not weird at all. Not because I think his employees are 4-year-olds. Actually, I just think 4-year-olds and 44-year-olds, we actually have very similar emotional needs from our leaders. We need people to hear us and validate us, and at the same time, not be taken over by our emotions. We want someone who has strong boundaries and can tolerate our protest and know we'll probably all be fine, you know, in 30, 60 minutes or the next day. And so I think this is actually leadership, a lot of it. And I think, again, the benefit when it's kind of more parent first is you get the benefit in a parent and the kid, but the parent can then also use that across every other adult situation.
I mean, you nailed it, which is the toolkit and skills that you're learning to be a sturdier parent just actually make you a sturdier human.
That's right.
And that works everywhere. Becky, let's talk a little bit about AI. As one of the most prolific, I mean, I don't even like, you have so many best-selling books that I'm not even going to try to recap all of them. But you've created such special content. And actually, we've watched the internet try to copy some of your content, and it honestly just doesn't work because it's not you, and it's not your language and your tone, and you're so precise about what you're building. Can we just talk a little bit about how you think about using AI? And I know one of the things you and I discuss is for extremely human content creators, and I'm very long humans. I think in the next 10 years, as AI goes everywhere, we're going to lean more towards real trusted people. But how are you thinking about AI within Good Inside?
Yeah, I mean, I think AI, like you said, we're long AI, we're long humans, and I think that combination is really, really unique. And I think parenting for most people is very different, I think, than a lot of other things in our life where we are looking for a utility, you know, where we're like, I just need a quick answer. Like, I just want to know, I don't know, the closest Italian restaurant. Like, who gives me that answer? My relationship, like, it doesn't really matter. Parenting, and I think it's one of the reasons why there's shame around leveling up our education. We have a lot of stories we tell ourselves. It feels shameful. And so if we're not met in a relationship we care about, the guidance often just doesn't exactly land. So look, I mean, AI is definitely in our app, right? From not only questions that people can ask to get hyper-personalized answers, but what I think we're especially good at, because, you know, look, we have our eyes wide open. Like, you know, AI is going to be everywhere. But I think what we're getting really good at surfacing questions through our AI that we think parents should be asking, right? To me, there's questions we ask, and to me, most of the important parts about parenting happen when we don't know the right question to ask, right? As an example, you have an 8-year-old, yeah, you've got to know how to talk about puberty. You have to know how to talk about your girl's developing breast buds. You have to know about periods. Most parents with an 8-year-old girl are not saying, hey, it's a little early, but how do I talk about my daughter's developing body, or the fact that her friends are, having breast buds, and probably she will, and she might be excited. She actually might be horribly ashamed and might have signs that we don't know are related to shame about her body, but are like, if you know to ask that question, like, you're probably good. Most of us don't. So I think what I'm really excited about in our app is our ability through AI to also surface the questions for parents and make them think, you know what? I wasn't going to ask that, but I do want the answer to that question, rather than just giving them answers. I think another thing that we're excited about with our AI is, to me, someone's first question is, I think about it like a door opener. I think about someone come to my, office, and they're like, what do I do when my kid hits? Okay, I could answer that in 2 sentences, but what ends up happening in a good 45-minute session is we're like, wow, the hitting it's just the very, very top of an iceberg. Not an iceberg like, oh, horror, but iceberg like, oh, like, this actually isn't about hitting at all. This is about frustration tolerance. This is about what happens when your kid doesn't have something go their way. This is actually about sibling dynamics. Your kid started hitting when you just had a new baby, and there's an older sibling, and there's a star soccer player. Anyway, and so the unraveling, I think, is really powerful. I think one of the things with AI, and that, we're excited about, is not just our ability to give someone a quick answer. You can get a script anywhere on the internet, but our ability to kind of hear what might be a longer story, and also the way we have memory of your other questions, so we can start, to remember for you, like, oh, well, we remember when you told us you were traveling a lot, and your kid has sleep issues when you travel, as an example, and you would have never connected that, but we can. And then just our ability to give more personalized, specific answers. People really identify with like our beliefs, and I think what makes Good Inside different is we actually have foundational beliefs. It's like a very first principles approach to parenting, and they want that applied to very specific situations. And AI is amazing at, being able to do that, so that someone really feels like something's for them and usable.
I'm going to begin to close up here, but one question we really want to ask before we move to the quick fire round is, Becky, this feels like we're in a really different world of parenting. Coming out of COVID with so much anxiety and depression, obviously you and Jonathan Haidt have done tons together. Oprah had you both on as he illuminated the problem of the anxious generation, and you are the solution, which is parents coming, subscribing to Good Inside, and like really getting the tools to be able to stabilize children. But the stakes are higher than ever before with self-harm. I mean, I don't even want to go into it because as a parent, it makes my stomach turn. But if Good Inside could be successful and tens of millions of people worldwide come use the tool, how do you think that could impact our society?
The first thing I just want to establish, and it's a phrase I've been saying a lot, is I really think about Good Inside as being expert in imperfect parenting. And I want to say that, in imperfect parenting. Like, there is no world that I would want to be a part of, definitely not one I'd want to build, where it's like, well, parents always know what to say, and they always stay calm, and they always stay connected. I'm a realist more than I'm anything else. I actually would say that's not only not real, I would actually say it's undesirable. The relationship you form with your kid will be the foundation of every other relationship they form. And I know this freaks people out, but I'm a truth teller. It also becomes the foundation of who they'll be attracted to in their emotional relationships. We're all attracted initially to what feels familiar. So if what felt familiar was someone being perfect and getting it right all the time, like, God help that child, there's really no partner out there. But if what feels familiar is someone who in general knows how to connect to you, is emotionally attuned, also sets boundaries, so they are a person in their own right in the relationship, and maybe more than anything doesn't get it right the first time, but when they don't, and when they yell, or when they're on their phone too much, or when they react harshly, they really take ownership and they come back. And my favorite thing is they repair. Hey, I'm sorry, that wasn't your fault. Like, I'm working on staying calm when I'm frustrated. You're right, I've been on my phone a lot. I'm going to find 10 minutes at least to put it away tonight, and we can have time together. That's the best it gets. And I think that's what Good Inside stands for. And so if I'm thinking about a world however many years from now and these tens of millions of people, mean, I do. I really believe we're very well positioned to have, as big of an impact as any company on how the world actually operates, because there's obviously policy. There's so many big societal things that affect, every generation. What also affects every generation is literally what happens in each person's home. We have a remarkable impact. The first number of years of a kid's life is a huge percentage of, how they're impacted after that. And so what do I think about that world? I think about that next generation that feels confident, that actually knows who they are, and I think this is important. I think I hear about it a lot from adults, that knows how to tolerate distress, meaning that didn't go my way and I can stick with it. I'm going to have to work hard for a while before I have a reward. I understand that challenges aren't a problem, but they're part of the road to feeling proud of myself, and I have to keep going. People always talk about bouncing back from failure. I think I'd see a generation who said, I don't know about failure. Failure feels like an end state. That was a struggle. I can bounce back from struggle. I can stay connected to myself and know who I am, but still listen to other people and not be threatened by the fact that they think differently than me. I'm actually kind of curious to understand people. I think it's really good inside is the foundation of family health, both for the adults raising them and for the next generation who will become the adults raising, the generation after. And so I think that's the kind of impact we can have.
I sincerely believe that the more that we can change parenting, we could potentially get ahead of a lot of the problems that we are facing and seeing in the world. And I don't know, that feels like a pretty good reason to show up to work and to continue to make progress for good inside. I want to end on two just quick fun topics, which is, one is, what's a mantra that you love? That I kind of feel like, Becky, having gotten to know you really well, that you just have these great things that are running through your brain at all times.
I have two mantras I'm going to share. I don't want to be, mantras are they're my love language. So being limited to one, I just cannot participate in such a difficult question. So the first one, and I started it with parenting, but now I think about it elsewhere. And, but it's just, this feels hard because it is hard, not because I'm doing something wrong. We all have the tendency to experience something as hard and immediately hear that it should be easier. It's our fault. We're not smart enough. We're not better. And to me, that mantra, no, this feels hard because it is hard, is applicable, to parenting, to work, to almost anything. The other mantra is something I stole from my second grade teacher. And to me, she had a sense of what growth mindset was before growth mindset existed. And Miss Edson taught us in second grade, if something feels too hard to do, it just means the first step isn't small enough. And I use that every day. I have to start this, I have to start, some complicated email, some complicated project. I can't do that. And I hear her saying, okay, that's fine. Well, what would be smaller? Oh, it would be writing the paragraph. No, I can't do that. It would be writing a sentence. Oh, that's too much. It would be writing a word. And I'll hear myself say, oh, I can write a word. And all of a sudden I get in a virtuous cycle of what I can do instead of being stuck in all the things I can't do. And so those are two mantras I use, every hour on the hour, basically.
And my last question, which I'm really excited to ask, which is, as somebody who I know has exceptionally good habits, and I just want to know, a habit that grounds you, that you could pay it forward to everybody out there listening.
Ooh. I do think a lot about, and I think anything about habits is that we have to give ourselves permission sometimes to not do them, or else it just becomes rigidity and shame. So something I try to do more nights than not is do anything to take care of my tomorrow self, anything. So if it's just me, I'm okay, I'm setting up my coffee. And then when I just have coffee basically made for me the next morning, I'm literally who did this for me? And I'm I did this for me. And I feel so grateful. Okay. And I'm surprised. I'm always surprised. I'm oh my goodness, that was so nice of her. Or the morning rush with kids. It sounds silly, but filling up my kid's water bottle the night before. It's not a hard task, but just the fact that they're done and cold, it just makes my life easier the next day. Right. Or maybe it's not that because my kids are old enough, they might fill up their own water bottles, but making sure my kids put their own socks next to the door. So when they have to put on their shoes, it's not some mad rush, finding socks is some dramatic situation. And even just telling them that's something they need to do the night before is a habit again. So I think the idea of taking care of your tomorrow self not from a place of have to, then it becomes like, oh, I have to make coffee. I have to tell my kids to do that. That's bad vibes. But like, I get to take care of my tomorrow self, and my tomorrow self is going to have something a little bit easier. I find that really helpful.
I want to end by just saying one super sincere thing, which is, as somebody who knows for a fact that at the end of my life, I will truly think about parenting as the most important thing that I've ever done. I couldn't be more grateful that you wake up every day, 7 days a week, often at 5 because we text sometimes, to go build Good Inside on behalf of literally billions of parents. And I really do believe that we are on a journey to change the world, one set of parents at a time, and building sturdier kids. I don't think anyone listening would disagree that we want more of those walking through this world. So, Becky, with all my heart, I'm so grateful to be on the journey with you. Everybody out there, go to goodinside.com, download Good Inside, and give yourself a chance to learn more about the journey of being a parent. Thank you so much, Becky.
Thank you, Alexa.
Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you've enjoyed the episode, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review. And we'll be back with another episode of Inspired with Alexa Von Topol. Thanks so much.